In this Ants Vienna episode, we assemble an aesthetic ants medium outworld, connect it to a 3D printed ant nest and introduce a new ant colony to it. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Ants Vienna. I wish everyone a happy 2023. I know it's been a while since my last video, but I had to take a little break of YouTube. But definitely not from ant keeping. If you're watching us for the first time, on this ant channel, we cover everything you need to know if you plan to keep ants as pets. On that note, today we will do a guide on how to assemble an aesthetic ants medium outworld kit and further connect it to a 3D printed nest. For this, I've brought you here to my desktop and let us get all the stuff we need out of the box. So, we have the acrylic panels and the 3D printed parts plus screws. Last but not least, the instructions. You can pause here and scan this with your phone if you want to. It actually links to a YouTube video Aesthetic Ants made on assembling this. But I found that there is one little detail he didn't mention in that video, which can save you a lot of time and trouble. And we're going to cover it here on Ants Vienna, of course. So, usually with assemblies, the fun part comes at the end, when the thing you're building is ready and you get to play with it. But not here. Here, you get to peel off the protective sheets from all the acrylic parts before you get to do anything else. I mean, just listen to this awesomeness. Okay, I think you understand what I mean by now. Thankfully, I didn't cut my fingernails beforehand, otherwise that might have proven much more difficult. Anyway, here are the parts and the rubbish side by side. Let's get rid of this now and get the rest of the parts on the table. I'm doing some organizing to help speed up the assembly. And here is the critical part. You have both short and long screws. The long ones are the ones that are slightly darker in the kit, but I couldn't find a mention neither in the video nor in the written instructions of where you need to use the longer screws. Also, I do appreciate the included Allen wrench, but I'll be using my screwdriver set nonetheless. Okay, let's get the assembly going. I kick things off by attaching the pillars to the bottom plate and screwing them in. Make sure you attach them in the correct way, otherwise you'll have to unscrew and reverse them. Don't ask me how I know this. Also, a little side note that goes for all the screwing. Only hand tighten the screws. Otherwise, if you tighten them too much, they may crack the 3D printed parts. Here I am preparing the side entrances or exits, any way you look at it, because this way it will be a lot easier to fit. And this is also the point where you need to use the long screws to get the connector through the acrylic and into the other plastic on the other side. Now let's repeat the whole process one more time and voila! After putting on the second side panel, we have the basic underpart done. Now, let's add the top plate on it. This is actually a fixed part, and you can only remove the middle section of it for feeding or watering your ants. Speaking of it, let's have a look on how to put this middle cover together. And again, this is another point where you need to use the longer screws. So, from the total of 7 longer screws in the kit, you have to use 2 for each connector and 3 for the top cover. There you go, your Ants Vienna assembly tip. You're welcome. And here is the now finished Aesthetic Ants Medium Outworld. It looks quite nice if I say so myself, and it feels just the right size too for someone starting up a colony and looking for something to get his or her ants to forage. But what is a foraging area without an ant nest? We can't leave it at that, can we? So, to complete this ant farm setup, we need to attach the 3D printed nest that came with it. Mine is the smaller variant. And to give you some honest feedback on this product, I was bothered here by 2 things, one minor and one functional. So the minor one first, I had to slightly unscrew the 4 screws holding the acrylic plate on so I could fully remove that protective plastic. I know that this is a purely aesthetic thing, but I do have an eye for those details. And the second issue I cannot overlook that I personally had with my own unit is this bottom side. Let me hold it in camera clearly for you. It seems like in the 3D printing process, the nozzle was actually too close to the print bed, which caused 90% of the mesh to be covered up, thus not letting humidity inside, which defeats the purpose of having a mesh in the first place. Thankfully, I've got an easy method to deal with this. Just pick a needle of your choice and pierce through the thinner spaces of the plastic where the holes were supposed to be, like you see me doing here. Now, this is quite a tedious method, but it gets the job done. So, if your nest should arrive like this, you now know how to solve that issue. If you enjoy this kind of assembly tutorial with practical tips in between, make sure to hit that like button or leave me a comment and I can make more of these in the future. You may also want to subscribe if you haven't done already with the bell icon so you don't miss upcoming Ants Vienna videos. Now, last but not least, we need to connect everything with tubing and seal up the unneeded exit so that the ants can't escape, which is the nightmare of every ant keeper. And here goes another general assembly tip I have for you. If you have trouble getting your tubes over connectors, just warm them up, either by putting the tubes in warm water for a couple of minutes or with your hands, like I'm doing here. This makes the tube more flexible and allow it to get over the connector. Now I'll do the same for the other 2 tubes and I'll be right back. And with some editing magic, you get to see the result right away. Also, let me mention, if you fancy any of the products I present you in this video, I will have links in the description below, along with my promo code for the Aesthetic Ants store that grants you 10% discount of your entire order at checkout. As for our final formicarium setup, here you can see the Outworld with closed off exit, the tubing connecting to the nest, and an extra path of tubing to attach our test tube where this nice, fairly new ant colony lives in. Unfortunately, their test tube is getting pretty messy and mold is starting to build up, so we have to give the ants the chance to get out of there. Time of truth. Here we go. Let me get you guys close enough to the ants so we can see their initial reactions, while I leave you with the question of the day. Do you know what ant species this colony is? Let me know down in the comments. I will make an official Ants Vienna ant guide on this ant species when I have gathered some more experience with them, so I can give you my honest and very personal feedback about keeping these specific ants as pets. In the meantime, you may want to check out the suggested videos that appear on your screen right now.